Hello, everyone. As we continue our journey in the underground, where we find exceptional people doing exceptional things, I'm excited today that we are with Shaw Bernard. Shaw, hello.
Hi.
So it's not every day that we get a chance to meet someone that's a woman and a black woman that forms their own modeling agency. So today's going to be very exciting as we learn the world of that specifically. So Shaw, I would love to you to just talk about just your background, like where you're from and how did you begin your journey?
So, thank you so much for having me, first of all. Um, this is wonderful. It's always nice to be able to have an opportunity to share about what I'm doing, because I do think the work is important and a lot more visibility needs to be had. So, I am originally from Trinidad and Tobago. I was born there, and I moved to the US when I was 14.
Oh wow, okay. So when you came to the U.S., what was that experience like for you as you transitioned from Trinidad to the U.S.?
It was definitely a culture shock. I mean, Trinidad is an island, warm, sunny, beautiful, and two seasons, rainy and dry. And, America has four seasons, right? So just cold, cold, hot sometimes, and a little bit of cold in spring. So climate change has, definitely changed some things. And then culturally, things are just different. It's, faster pace, bigger place, trains, lots of people going to school in a co-ed system, which is not something that I had done before. So yeah, a lot of difference. So I thought, I would be a lawyer. I was really interested in that. Joan from Girlfriends was my idol. I'm going to be like Joan when I grow up. I want to be a lawyer, single, making my way in the world. And so I studied criminology when in college. I have a bachelor's degree in criminology. Yeah, so I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I mean, once I got my criminology degree, though, once I started going to college and getting the degree, I was like, okay, maybe I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. But by that time, I had already, been in modeling and, been in the fashion world. So things were turning in that direction for me.
That's interesting. Look, I have parents that are immigrants also. I think in immigrant culture, you're either a doctor or a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
And they push you to do one of those, and then as you grow, you begin to explore and learn many different things, and begin to see that there are other things that you can do besides being a lawyer and a doctor. So,
Yeah.
so you said that you were starting getting into modeling. Like, how did that come across? Like, what was? Do you remember what your first gig was, or when was it? You're saying, well, you know what? I want to be a model, or I want to be in this that world.
Yeah. So what I wanted to be was a lawyer. What I didn't want to be was a model. Didn't think about it. Didn't know about it. I mean, we've had, two Miss Worlds, I believe, or two Miss Universes in Trinidad, which is, iconic, especially for a Caribbean island. So I knew about the pageant world, but modeling as a career, any of that stuff, that's just not the realm I was in. And my aspirations of being a lawyer wasn't forced upon me. Like those were just things that I had for myself. My family was just like nobody really talked about what I should be or could be. For myself, I created those goals. And so when I moved to the U.S., I started hearing, oh my gosh, you're so tall, you should be a model. Oh my gosh, you're so tall, you should be a model. I'm like, what are these people talking about? It would either be, are you a model or do you play basketball? Neither of those things were true at the time. And so really modeling fell onto me. I was not one of those little girls that grew up thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to be a model and walk the runways of the world. Just didn't occur to me. But after, my God, if I would have counted it, by this point, the millions of people at this point that had said that to me, and still to this day, ask me if I'm a model. Really, that's how I got into the space.
So, what was your first gig? Do you remember it? What was it like?
I, you know, okay, there's history, right? So first gig at 15, no, 14, 14, because that's when I moved to the US. Once those questions started rolling, then, my mother and I were like, well, we need to pursue this. How do we do it? What do we do? So our first point of reference and kind of entry-ish into the space was Barbizon, because, they ruled the modeling school space. And so we went there for an interview, and I remember the woman, I can actually see her face now, that, was like, you will be great, and of course there's a fee attached to that, right? Because they're a development company, and so you had to pay money. And, we didn't have the money to pay for that. So that kind of went to the side. And it wasn't until I moved to Maryland. And again, the question, are you a model, are you a model, came up, and I was in the mall, and there was this company that was doing something, and I got to be a part of that. So that was kind of like my first introduction into the space. It wasn't anything that was a paid gig or anything, but very local level of me being a part of this fashion show. I want to say that they did some preliminary classes too. It was over 20 years ago, so a lot has escaped me since then. But I think there was kind of like some classes leading up, and then there was this culminating fashion show. They kept coming after me, and so from that, opportunity in Maryland, and then I moved back to New York, and then I got connected with a salon here in Brooklyn, actually. And, one of the owners is a makeup artist, and, she just kind of started introducing me to different photographers and, local fashion shows and stuff. So it's not the typical, you got scouted on the street and
the Devil Wears Prada.
It's definitely not Devil Wears Prada. We'll get into how I might be the Black Miranda Priestley, but that's later on in the conversation. But yeah, it's not this whimsical, I got scouted on the street in New York, and then I got signed with Ford, and the rest is history. Like, that's not been my journey.
Okay. So what were you doing, I guess, between then and when you started Strut?
A lot. So I started Strut at 25, which is 11 years ago. And before I started Strut, I was modeling. I didn't sign my first modeling contract until I was 22 years old. I was doing the freelance modeling circuit. I had lots of friends that were models that were signed. So full transparency, because we're talking about underground and conversations about like how people have been able to build what they've built. I really didn't have an opportunity to take my career to the next level for two reasons. One, being that I was undocumented. So remember, I said I moved here from Trinidad. So I flew under the radar. I'm giving you an exclusive here, by the way. I flew under the radar for a very long time. No one of my friends really knew. I just, I didn't have to disclose that information. And then I was young, so there wasn't really a conversation about me like having to work and, all that stuff at that time. So anyway, when I was, 17, 18, getting ready to go to college, I was, hanging out in the city, all the things that models do at the clubs with the promoters and all that stuff. And so I had lots of friends that were signed with, huge reputable agencies. But I never really pushed the envelope too far, because I just knew that I couldn't really fulfill, what would be required of me. So that's the first part. And then the second part of it is that it was also in a time when Black models were kind of banished from the fashion world, right? So I was fighting I was in between a rock and a hard place. It's like, on one hand, everyone sees the potential that you have and that you're capable, but you can't because you have this barrier. But then when you do have a little opening and people would like to, move forward in a certain capacity, you can't either because, of the times that we're in. So that's really how that happened. And then once I, got situated and all that, I signed my first contract at 22 with a boutique agency here in New York. And I modeled professionally for a couple, between 23 to 25. And then I started my company.
Great. So what precipitated that? Where you're like, okay, you know what? I mean, it's a very powerful story you just talked about. Was it like you came to that point where you're like, it's time for me to have my own agency.
As a model, and one that wasn't really very successful, you still had to have another job, right? And so I worked at another job and and modeled at the same time. And so I got injured. They discarded me, right? Like I couldn't come in for a couple of days, and they called me and they were just like, we have to let you go. And I was just like, okay, well, you guys do what's best for you. I'll do what's best for me, And I've always had that. I've always had that attitude of just like, I'm gonna do what's best for me. And I started talking with my husband just like about what my next move would be, and an old friend put the bug in my ear, like, people really look up to you. You know a lot about the modeling industry. Well, enough. You've been in it for a minute, and there's information that you can, impart on the next generation. I decided like I would start this Strut company, right? So Strut has had many lives at this point, but where we started when I started it 11 years ago, it was a modest modeling school. I'm like, I'm just gonna work with young people and help train the next generation of supermodels, and give people information about how the modeling industry works, and then also offer a safe space to do that.
Interesting. So tell us what has Strut become? Like what are the goals of Strut? How do you find your models, and what makes Strut special?
For me, what it has become is a brand that's synonymous with a Black woman at the helm that is, leading the charge and fighting for true diversity and inclusivity in the fashion industry. You know, staying steadfast to those goals and principles. Um, it has become my life's work. Much like I said earlier, with me getting into modeling, it's not something that I wanted to do. It called me, right? So starting as a model called me, but then starting my company, Strut, that also calls me. 11 years ago, Strut was a modeling school. Several years later, we pivoted into being a mother agency. And then in the last 3.5 years, we pivoted into being full service. So the evolution has been 3 times over. I say we're like a cat. We got 9 lives. We're on our third, so we still have some bandwidth to go. But what I have been able to build is something that there are literally only a handful of Black women that have been able to have a full service agency in a large market. I'm in New York City, which, with no billionaire backer, any of that stuff. It's just like hard work and determination and, a real commitment to want to see different. So that's what I've built. That's what I believe it is now. And what I wanted to continue to be is this iconic brand so I coined this new tagline earlier this year, and I said, Strut Models, best and brightest from darkest to lightest. And that's really what I want us to be known for. I want us to be known as the agency that houses the best Black models in the world, is to be the first Black woman to have a network agency, right? To own a network agency. And what that means is that we have offices in all of the large markets around the world. There have been other Black women, like I said, that have started agencies and, ran it for a significant period of time, but no one was able to become, there's no Black Wilhelmina, no Black Ford, LA models, New York models, right? Like those network agencies, women, the Elite World Group and Elite New York City that has 3 offices around the world. There are no Black women that have done that. And so
No, I think that's a very amazing goal, because I like from darkest to brightest,
yeah,
darkest to lightest.
yeah, best and brightest from darkest to lightest.
Yes.
Yeah,
Because usually when you see a Black model in a show, it's like the most exotic person from Africa or something like that,
right.
And so nothing wrong with that, because they're beautiful too, right?
Yeah.
But there is different shades, right?
Yes.
Of Black culture, right?
For
and so
sure.
I do think that having someone from here that understands that diaspora and can bring those different shades to light is very, unique goal.
Yeah, I mean, what we've done also this year is with that tagline in mind, we have our board displayed that way. So traditionally, agencies have their models displayed alphabetically, right? A to Z, Z to A. You can reverse the things. Now that we've introduced the curve board, you can, sort by curve. Lifestyle you can sort, fit you can sort, but nobody had sorted according to shades, skin tones.
Right.
And I mean, makeup brands do that all the time. I mean, Rihanna revolutionized the world when she, introduced Fenty, and it had all of, so many dark shades, and the different undertones and all of the things. And so our agency website is displayed similarly, right? Like our darkest model is first, and then you go down the palette and you can reverse it from lightest to darkest. And still with the A to Z, I can guarantee that agencies are going to start to sort their models that way moving forward because it's smart. It like makes the job easier.
So walk us through like a typical day. Like, what was today like? You wake up, what's it like?
Today was crazy. Today was crazy. I'm, we're working remotely right now, and so I came into the city on the train. Typically, I drive everywhere, but I had a meeting with a new model, and so I had to go see with her. So I came in to meet with her, and after doing that, I had another Zoom meeting with another model, and I took some time to work on breakdowns, and sending packages and following up with the clients to see if they needed anything else, or checking to see if they said, hey, can you send us X, Y, and Z, running after models to provide me with the materials so that I could get back to the client. And so a lot of back and forth about that. Checking in with my intern because he's scouting, and I'm like, no, this is not it. That's it. Okay, that's good. We're going to reach out to her. I a little shopping, a little retail therapy because I totally needed it. Totally needed it. And then I spent the rest of my day in a meeting, in a business meeting. And so what I love about the work that I do, and also just because of this is how I operate, I'm not I don't want to say I'm not a 9-to-5er because that's going to sound strange, and what I mean by that is routine. It's like I need to have something different happening all the time. Like if I'm just in the mundane day to day, like my soul is slowly dying. I need to be able to wake up and like there's something new to do.
So when you find the model, like, would love to hear about that. Is it like you're on Instagram and you're like, oh, that person, I got to get that person to represent them. Like, what's that like?
Yeah. So insider secrets, but so what I will say is I have really gotten clear about who the strut girl is, and that's something that as a Trinidadian people would say I was spitting top in mud for the last 3 years trying to figure out like who is the strut girl. I looked at our board. In my booking software, I went in to see like all of the models we've represented over the last 3 years, and it literally gave me like a bit of a panic attack because I was like, oh my God, like this is all over the place, So I know what I'm looking for, and I go with intention to find it. And even more so now, what makes a model want to be with us is because I'm involved, right? And so as a former model and now an owner, it's a full circle relation that I could do because I could relate to a girl when they're going through the slow seasons and the challenges and the rejections and all that stuff. I'm also young enough, still, able to dip and do, and be cool, right? People still think I'm in my 20s, but I'm not. So I've lived a really full life, and I relate to, I think a lot of the differentiation is the relationship. That I can really connect to the model wherever they're at in their life because I've lived so many different experiences thus far. And having an opportunity to have a personal relationship with the owner is a great selling point, because you know that whether I'm in the booking seat or, the team is taking care of it, that you always have access to me. And I care about you as a person. Not just that I see you as a figure. I'm running a business, so I do need to make money, but I'm able to just relate to you on a personal level. And I really believe that that makes a difference.
So how about the client side? And what makes the client say, you know what, I'd rather use Strut than another agency?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think it's really just the talent, you know. So again, it's a relationship thing. What I'm confident in is that once people get on a call with me, I can close the deal. You know, once they see me, forget about it. We're locked in for life, you know. But just understanding what my strengths are and playing to that is what I've been doing. And, you know, saying to the client, and then also being really clear about what we're building, what the mission is, what we have built and what we want to continue to build, and say like, hey, you know, you want to get in alignment with this because this is the future.
Yeah. No, I can say one thing about Shaw. She has great energy, great presence. So hopefully you're going to continue growing.
Yeah.
Talk about the fashion shows. Like, what's it like? You know, we collaborated a couple of years ago with a fashion show. It was called Electric Field. That was one of my favorite events that we've done. We've done like 30 events, and I tell people that was one of my favorites. But yeah, we'd love to talk. Like, what's it like? Do you like comparing New York fashion show? I don't know if you do Paris, Milan, and all those, but what's that experience like? Did you go behind the scenes there?
Yeah, so I've gone behind the scenes at fashion shows, you know, from a production standpoint, you know, as an attendee, and having backstage access, especially, you know, knowing the designers, that I'm wearing one of the looks, being in the show as a model, going to the shows to support my models, right? So lots of different avenues that I've been able to see the shows from. It is electric, you know, as an attendee, it's electric because you're just in there and you feel the energy. There's the excitement. You want to see the collection, like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And when the lights turn down low and then, you know, come up and the show starts, you're like, wow. And then you realize, oh my gosh, it's only like 15 minutes max, you know. When you're backstage and you're seeing all the drama and the yelling and the crazy, and you're like, everybody settle down, like this is going to be over in like less than 15 minutes, you know. So back there is very stressful. But overall, it's just a fantastic just experience, you know. So many people come from around the world to be able to just get access to that fantasy world, really. It's not real, but it's real because there's a lot of money on the line. But it's just a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Who's your favorite designer overall right now?
Are like local Black-owned designers. Like, I am totally about supporting Black-owned brands, you know, underground, right? Like companies, you know. So sadly, I'm not wearing anything, well, except for my jewelry that's like from a Black-owned brand. But that's really just like my jam. Like, if I can get it, you know, from a Black-owned place, right? So Brandon Blackwood, I would love to be able to have them as a client, you know, John Christopher Rogers, right? Like, those are the people, like, goals. For me, you know, the goal is that every Black-owned and Black-led brand books with us. It's like a no-brainer, like to the point where we just literally have these annual contracts and they go, okay, cool. This is how much we're going to spend with you a year. This is what we need. Go, you know, work of like impact and, you know, changing the space and how the space operates. Like, after I'm done with the work in this space that I've committed 22 years of my life to, I want it to be different. And I want it to be different because I've been a part of it, you know, and that the next generation could say, oh my gosh, Shaw did X, Y, and Z, and this is why this is different. Right. You know, she built X, Y, and Z, and this is why now there are more agents of color in the space. You know, this is why there are more women, you know, that are agents and are in the space. And so when a model walks in, they feel a sense of safety and security because it's not just all these men telling them, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to be like that. Right. You know?
So, Shaw, let me ask you this. So, hypothetical, I'm a 25-year-old woman. You know, I'm like, you know what? I want to start my own modeling agency. What advice do you give that person? What did you learn?
Don't. Look, okay, call me. My advice is call me. Woo! I learned so many things, and I'm still learning. You want to surround yourself with people that are where you would like to be, have already gotten to the top of the mountain, and can help you climb, and I've been really fortunate to have those people in my life that do this thing at the highest level for decades on end. I was teaching a class recently, and I said to the attendees that there's this phrase, and I don't know who said it, where it says work until your icons become your enemies, and I say work until your icons become your friends, become your peers. That's sweeter, yeah. Because now the people who have really been at the highest level of this modeling industry are a phone call away from me, are a text away from me. I'm not in competition with them. I literally am having dinner with greats, and I'm usually the only Black woman in the space, but, I'm very, very grateful.
It's good advice. Everything is really a marathon, not a sprint. But
yeah.
What I will say is 2 years ago, we had the very good fortune of working with your models.
Yeah.
They were professional. They were excellent. They made the event, a lot better just by the way they carried themselves. So I hope Strut continues in this. So tell us, you've given us some great advice. How can clients and models get in touch with you?
Yeah, so our Instagram is STRUT Models NYC. That's STRUT Models with an S NYC. That's on Instagram and on TikTok. Our website is strutmodels.com. And to get in touch with me directly is Strut with Shaw. So you see literally I'm building Strutville over here, all things Strut. But yeah, my personal Instagram is also Strut with Shaw, so we can be found.
Awesome. Thank you.